Hello everyone, this is FactRox, and this is my first video tutorial of my iPhone development series. In this video tutorial, I'm just going to cover the basic stuff that you need to know for programming and information via various development tools, and specifically I'm going to answer a lot of questions. In the future, depending on how this series goes, I may dive down specifically into a video series covering different programming tools that are used for the iPhone. And I'll answer user questions, viewer questions, because this is what this series is for, is try to demystify the process of iOS development. In this series, I'm going to cover everything from the basics to how to submit stuff to the store, because it's kind of complicated if you've never done it before. Okay, so the first question that I've been asked over and over and over and over again is if you can get out of paying money in order to get an app on the App Store. The answer is no. You have to go through Apple's developer program right here, and you have to pay the $99 per year fee. Now, if you do not want to publish something for the iPhone, you can use a development tool like OpenPlug, which is a plugin for Adobe Flash Builder, or Adobe Flex as it was called, and I created a tutorial on that a while back to generate an unsigned application where then you could jailbreak your device and load the unsigned application. So if you use a development tool which has the option of producing an unsigned IPA, then you can just use AppSync and then you'll be good. And another option is you could also release videos via some third-party app store, like say Cydia, but I haven't done any research into that, and honestly I don't think you're going to make that much money, because the jailbroken community is like say 10% of the total iPhone owners out there. So think of the amount of money that you would make on the App Store, and Cydia it'd be like it's even less than 10%, because a lot of people who jailbreak do not buy apps. I'm not currently jailbroken, and currently, I don't recommend it, especially for programming. You want to go for the Apple developer program to get something on the App Store. And now, when you develop when you sign up for the iOS developer program, Apple will give you their mainstream development tool, and this is called Xcode. Xcode uses the Objective-C programming language, and unlike the more modern programming languages like C# and Java, Objective-C is not based on C++. In fact, it's based directly from C. And the main difference between Objective-C and, say, the C++ languages is that Objective-C implements object-oriented programming in a completely different way. And also, Objective-C for the mobile devices has no garbage collector, so it can be a pain from moving from a language, say from C# or Java, and they collect all the memory for you. You don't have to worry about the stack and the heap, and allocating and deallocating stuff. So it's a very difficult tool to use if you're used to any of those high-level languages. Fortunately, some third-party app developers came out with development tools which will ease developers in creating iPhone applications using more high-level languages, and I'm going to cover these tools right now. Okay, I created a simple table containing the development tools that I recommend, because there's so many of them, and I actually had to go through and find out which ones were good and which ones were crap. So I put them all in this table, and I separated, the categories: difficulty, language, and price. Okay, so if you are completely new to programming, and you have no experience, no coding, nothing, then I highly recommend you start with either GameSalad or Gamemaker. Now, Gamemaker, you might have heard of it. It's been around for a very, very long time. And you're probably thinking, it's used to program desktop games. How can you program an iPhone game using Gamemaker? Well, it turns out that they're releasing a new version of Gamemaker called Gamemaker Studio. They haven't released the price yet, but if you're very, very familiar with Gamemaker, and even if you're not, it's a very easy program to get started with, then you will have no trouble creating your own iPhone games. And GameSalad is another tool. It's relatively newer, but It's also very easy to create iPhone games with absolutely no coding. For Game Salad, the price is free. There's a free version that will allow you to publish to the App Store. And Gamemaker, again, they haven't launched a price, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's between $100 and $200-ish. Now, for those who have experience with HTML, JavaScript, those web technologies, and you just don't like traditional programming, then I would strongly recommend the Titanium IDE. I'll provide links for all of these development tools in the description below. And the price of Titanium 2 is free. And of course, the difficulty, it's slightly harder. I mean, you have to have experience with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And now, I've covered Adobe Flex before, but I mentioned Adobe Flash as well. These are Adobe's tools which allow you to develop cross-platform games written in Flash that compile to the iPhone. The only issue is the price, though. Adobe charges an awful lot of money for their development tools, and I believe they're $700 a pop. But these licenses last forever, though, and you have to be well versed in developing for Flash and the ActionScript programming language. Now, Adobe Flash is geared toward designers, and Adobe Flex is geared toward developers. So if you're creating games, it would be easier to create them in Flash, and if you're creating business applications, typically Flex would be a better tool. Now, this next tool is the one that I use to develop both of my games. It's called Corona. It's developed using Lua, and Lua is an interpreted functional programming language. And the price of Corona SDK was $200 a year, but I think it was worth it, and I may start doing tutorials covering Corona. And then this is a very, very, very popular tool for designers. The Unreal game engine, just recently they've came out with their version for mobile devices, and then they created Infinity Blade, and that currently has been in the top 10 or so for the last year since it's came out. It's a very, very, very powerful graphical engine, and it's geared for designers. So if you're a programmer, you may have some trouble adapting to the use of this, but if you're a designer, you can create awesome games using Unreal. And their price is $100 a year, and I think they also charge royalty fees if you make over 50 grand. I think you may have to consult the developer agreement. And then the traditional tool is Xcode. And of course, that comes free with the Apple developer license. So out of all these tools would work very, very well. The three which I would choose to work with, if you have to go free, if you don't have money on top of that $99 to get a decent tool, of course you could go with Xcode if you have the patience to adapt to Objective-C. You can go with Game Salad if you have no experience. I mean, it's free, and the games that develop, they're very, very easy to create, absolutely no programming. And then if you have some money, I would recommend Corona. I think Corona on here is one of the easiest tools to use. And then I'm probably going to get comments in description. Oh, there's more different tools. Like, for example, some tools that are not on here that I could mention are, say, AirPlay SDK, and that SDK, which is actually now called Marmalade, I think that's what it's called, was used to develop the port for Call of Duty Nazi Zombies. So this tool is geared for the higher level of programmers. But I looked at that tool and I really didn't like it. I didn't think it was geared for anyone who only had medium or didn't have that much experience. And there was also an SDK called Dragonfire, which was geared toward the PC users, allowing you to program in C++ using Visual Studio. I didn't like that either, and it wasn't that flexible, so I didn't include that on here. Oh, and I actually forgot to mention this, but of the tools here which are geared toward Mac and PC, Gamemaker, the Adobe IDEs, and Unreal Engine, those three are geared toward PC. So if you cannot afford a Mac, then you will want to work with those three. And the ones that are geared for Mac are Game Salad, Corona, and of course Xcode, and then Titanium as well. And I'll also note that several of these IDEs, like here, such as Corona or Unreal, they don't charge you anything to develop your game. So what you can, and to test on your device, so what you can do is you can write your entire game using, say, Unreal or Corona, and then right as you're ready to publish it on the App Store, you can buy that developer license. And that's different for Adobe, where you have to buy their software right off the bat to use it. Okay, there's one last thing I have to cover in this video, and this is the fact that you need a Mac for 2 steps in your iPhone development process. Now you may be complaining here, oh, this sucks, you know, I can't afford a $1,000 Mac, because they are pretty expensive, but you just need it for 2 small steps, so you don't need to have a Mac constantly. The first part is to sign your applications. Now, modern PC iPhone IDEs such as Adobe Flash now offer the ability to sign the applications directly on the PC, so you don't need a Mac. But the issue is here, for the certificates, they want the iPhone certificates in the P12 format, and that's not the format that you get off of the provisioning portal, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. And what you have to do to convert it to P12 is you have to actually download the certificate, import it onto Keychain Manager on the Mac, and then export it as a .p12 file. And then you will be able to use it in your Windows IDEs. And the other step, which is the final last step of your iPhone development process, is Application Loader. Application Loader is a plugin for Xcode, and this is the app that is used to upload the application to the App Store. Now, Apple does this for a couple of reasons. The first reason is for security. Application Loader sends your final distribution IPA through an encrypted network connecting to Apple servers, so your stuff doesn't get intercepted and your code doesn't get stolen and decompiled. And the other reason, which I think this might not be true, is to weed out newbie developers who don't know what they're doing and aren't willing to read the documentation. And I'll explain this process and what to do and in the final steps when I cover how to set up your iTunes Connect and how to upload your final application. Okay, so this is it for my first tutorial. Now I'm trying to debate how I'm going to have the format for this tutorial be. I can do it like I have here, where I'm just recording in first person and explaining everything, or I could do it, say, how I do my traditional video tutorials, where I just go straight through and give all the information, and the video turns out to be a lot smoother that way and goes a lot quicker. And well, just leave some feedback in the comments below, and I'll answer all necessary questions. And that's it for this tutorial. I look forward to part 2.